Well, hello, everyone. Hey, I'm glad to have you back again at the Lunch and Learn. And you know what they say, it's more than a meal. Absolutely more than a meal. It's an opportunity to lifelong learning. And over this past year, we've had some really good topics and some amazing speakers. And today is no different. Here's an opportunity to learn about hospice. Many of you have heard the word hospice, you've heard the word palliative care, and you've heard the name Agrace. But what does that really mean? And who is Agrace? And what do they do? Well, we've got someone who's going to educate us today, Molly Dean, who is a senior accounting specialist at Agrace, a manager. And she's going to share with us information on Agrace and help us understand those words, hospice, palliative care, and Agrace and what they do. So please welcome Molly Dean to the podium.
Thank you so much, Janice. It's my pleasure to be here today. Thank you all so much for the warm welcome. As Janice said, it's a great opportunity today to learn more about the services that are available to you in your home, out in the community. And I also encourage everyone to ask questions as well. We'll try to make it as interactive as possible. So please feel free to, raise your hand or speak up if there's a question as we're reviewing the information. But first of all, I'm Molly Dean. I'm a senior account manager with Agrace. I've been with Agrace for 12 years, and a big part of my role is connecting with people out in the community so that you're aware of what services are available to you. And I really appreciate working with the Fitchburg Senior Center. And I also used to live in Fitchburg as well, in a condo over right off of McKee Farms Park. So have a special place in my heart for Fitchburg, as well as, of course, that's where Agrace is located, right over on East Sherrill Parkway. So before we get started, I'll just throw it out to the group. Is anyone familiar with or had an experience in the past with Agrace? Okay, I see a lot of hands. I see someone in a purple shirt. Do you want to speak about your experience with Agrace? Well, thank you so much. She was saying how Agrace was able to assist with her mother in 2020, and we're also going to be talking about the support groups that she mentioned. So there's always an opportunity to participate, even if you didn't back then. Was there someone else too that wanted to share right there? Thank you so much and I'm so sorry for your loss. She was saying that her daughter was at Agrace and had been there in 2021 and died there. So thank you. Go ahead. Oh, thank you so much for sharing your story, and I'm so sorry for your loss. She was saying that when her mother died in Las Vegas, that, even though her mother wasn't on Agrace services here, she had the opportunity to get grief counseling through the Agrace Grief Center. So thank you so much for sharing that. A lot of people don't realize that we do have services, too, that you can take advantage of, even if your loved one wasn't on an Agrace service. So we'll be talking more about the Grief Center as well. Anybody else go ahead. Thank you so much for sharing that. And that's a great point, too. A lot of people don't realize that, you don't actually have to go anywhere to get Agrace hospice care. We come right out to the home to provide services. Actually, 95% of the people that we care for right in their home, and they don't have to go anywhere. So that's a wonderful point. Well, thank you all so much for sharing your experiences with Agrace, and then just like Janice said, does anyone know what hospice is? Well, we're going to be expanding a little bit more about all the things that hospice can do today, as well as also our palliative care program, which is before you would need hospice as well. So first of all, a little bit about Agrace. So we are the oldest hospice, the original hospice that started in Dane County in 1978. So this was when we first were a small group of volunteers in the basement of a church in Madison that really felt like it was important to be able to support people at end of life and be able to be with them on this journey. So we've grown a lot over the last many years. We continue to be a nonprofit, community-supported organization. We wouldn't be able to do the things that we do to support our patients out in the community without that community support. And so over the years, that's allowed us to be able to expand where we serve now 19 Wisconsin counties. We're the largest hospice in South Central Wisconsin, and we also have, again, many of you are familiar with our campus in Fitchburg, but we also have a campus in Janesville. We have offices in Baraboo, Dodgeville, Watertown, and Wauwatosa, and we also just recently opened an office in La Crosse as well. So what we found is that people could really use that added support in their home, and so we've really expanded to be able to help and meet that need. So with Agrace, we do much more now than hospice, and so many people aren't aware of the different services that we offer, but we also want to be able to assist people that are aging, that have serious illnesses, that also live with memory loss and dementia, people that are dying, and then also, as we talked about before with our grief center, also people that are grieving. So we'll be talking about all these different services today. So the first service we'll talk about is palliative care. What it is really comfort care. So with palliative care, the reason why we started this program is we got about 500 phone calls the year before the program started from people that were looking for assistance with their loved one. They were having issues with chronic illness, they were having symptoms, they were dealing with pain, and they called us, and while they didn't meet that criteria for hospice because they weren't necessarily end of life, that didn't mean that they still didn't need assistance and need support in the home. So we started our palliative program so that people that have chronic illnesses that need symptom management and pain management have that added support. So with palliative care, what it is, it's an in-home medical consultation. So just like in the past when you had a doctor that used to come and do visits right to the home to see their patients in their home, that's exactly what our nurse practitioners with palliative care do. They come right out to our patient's home so that they can do an in-depth, in-person visit with them. Now, the nice thing about it is that our nurse practitioners, they don't, you can still work with your regular primary care physician. So then our nurse practitioners don't replace that physician, but what they do is they just work hand in hand together. Because it really, as what we've been told from our primary care physicians, is that when they see their patients in their offices, they only get a snapshot of what's going on that day with that person. But with palliative care, if you have a nurse practitioner that's coming right into the home with you, you actually get the movie of what's going on in their life. So that way they can make much better recommendations, on how they can deal with some of the challenges and symptoms that our patients are having. So with the palliative care visits, our nurse practitioners have up to 2 hours to be able to spend on an initial visit with our patients. So that really gives them time to, first of all, get to know their patients, build a relationship with them, see them in their home and how they're interacting and maneuvering in the home, and also then just get time to ask questions and find out what are their challenges, what are their goals, what symptoms are they experiencing, are they having any pain, what are some things that are important to them, as well as also then, do a physical assessment and also a full medication review, and then make recommendations on just focused on quality of life. And we found that really helps so much in just being really proactive in making sure that we're keeping people safe and independent in their home. Because what we found with our patients is their goal is they want to stay in their home. They want to be, happy and productive and symptom-free. But what are maybe some recommendations that can allow them to have that quality of life? And that's really what the palliative care is, just focusing on that quality of life. We see people from all sorts of different types of diseases. So these are just some of the, examples of some of the chronic conditions that some of our patients, may have. And they may be recently diagnosed with these conditions. They may be, ones that they have had for years, but they've maybe had a recent change of condition. Maybe they're starting to have more symptoms or progression. So they're looking for some more recommendations on how to just live successfully. And that's the thing is with a lot of these chronic illnesses, you're not necessarily going to be able to cure them, but how can we learn to live more successfully with them? Because we want to have, be symptom-free and pain-free. How can we learn to, just kind of live with these illnesses in a better way? So some of the ones that we see a lot is dementia and Alzheimer's, as many of you know, is like one of the, fastest growing, diseases. So many people now, 1 out of 3 will die with dementia. Cancers, heart failure, COPD, emphysema, lung diseases, kidney disease, cirrhosis or chronic liver diseases, stroke, MS. We're seeing a lot of increase in Parkinson's, ALS, HIV/AIDS, other less common illnesses. Really anything that's a chronic condition that has symptoms that would be appropriate for palliative care. So what does a first consultation visit look like with our nurse practitioners? So this is, an at-home visit, so our patients don't have to go anywhere. The nurse practitioner comes right out to the home. So it's a physical exam at home by that provider. So that's that opportunity we talked about to just talk about, symptoms, medications, goals. And I think that's the most important thing too is each person is their own individual, so what's important to the patient? What are their goals? What do they see as a successful, healthy life? What can we do to help them to get that? And then at that point, then the nurse practitioner will make recommendations. They'll share them with the patient, and then they'll also share it with the patient's primary care physician. And then it'll be up to that primary care physician to then make those recommendations, like either implement them with orders or make a medication change. All those things would be from the primary care visit. And then at this point, because each person is an individual, we will schedule follow-up visits just depending on that individual and what their needs are. So it may be the nurse practitioner coming out, in the next couple months, or maybe after a visit or two, things have really stabilized, and they won't actually have to have the nurse practitioner come out, for a longer period of time. It's really individualized to that patient. Now, one of the other things that people always ask too, and this is important, is, how is this going to be paid for? And this is going to be paid for through Medicare Part B as in boy. So typically what we see is that there's a small copay. So if you have a copay when you go see your regular physician, you'll also have a copay with this as well. But we don't want there to be any surprises. So as soon as the referral is put in, the first thing that Agrace will do is take a look at the insurance, find out exactly how it's going to be paid for, and then let the patient know that before they schedule the visit. So then that way there's no surprises, won't be any unexpected bills at all. And what we found is that a lot of the health insurance companies appreciate that this is actually, care that oftentimes results in less hospitalizations, less ER visits, less falls. So they appreciate the fact that this is, being proactive for the quality of life of the patient. Any other questions at all about the palliative program? Also, dementia support. So this is also something that is really increasing in this country is, unfortunately, the amount of dementia. So Agrace also has some new programs that they are implementing to be able to meet that need. So we do have the opportunity to meet with someone to do a one-on-one care consultation. That way, if they have a loved one that has dementia, they can kind of learn about different resources that may be available for them to be able to help with that. as well as also we have learning to live with dementia classes. And then we'll be talking more about our adult day center, which is another great resource for people living with dementia, Alzheimer's, and cognitive decline. And then we've got our Agrace Adult Day Center. So for many of you, you may be familiar as you're driving down the Beltline, you may see a big sign that's purple that says the Agrace Adult Day Center. It's right in between Todd Drive and Fish Hatchery Road. I see some nodding heads. I think of it as being between Culver's and Rocky Rococo's, two of my favorite places to go to. It's in the old A1 furniture, and we have renovated it so that it's a beautiful adult day center. It's got all these great windows, so that way our clients can be like looking outside and seeing the world. But we really created this because there needed to be more places where if somebody has dementia, Alzheimer's, cognitive decline, but they still want to continue to live at home with their loved ones, but is there a safe space that they could go to during the day, Monday through Friday, just to be able to have a fun place where there's great food, there's fun activities, there's people that they can be friends with and socialize with, and then also give their caregivers at home a break too. And that gives a caregiver the opportunity to go if they want to go run errands, or if they want to maybe meet a friend for lunch. They want to do some, activities on their own, but they know their loved one, is having a good time and in a safe space. So it's really a nice, form of respite, for their family and caregivers. So this is open Monday through Friday, 7:30 in the morning until 5:30 at night. And what we find is that we offer 2 meals a day. So you've got breakfast in our little 50s style diner. We've got also lunch, all of which is prepared on site, and a snack. We do morning seated exercise, which is one of the favorite activities for our clients, as well as also to a lot of other fun games. There's also an opportunity for volunteers from Agrace to come in and do more one-on-one activities with some of our clients that really prefer, that instead. And then we also have our own movie theater that's right there. So in the afternoon, there's usually a movie that's shown. But we really try to do our best to, just engage and provide great socialization to our clients. We have a wonderful manager at the Adult Day Center, Karen, who's extremely knowledgeable in dementia. And we just try to kind of meet people, where they are. We had one new client that, was really hesitant about coming in, but his family said that one of the things that he loved was hard rock music. So to greet him that day, we played some AC/DC, and he felt immediately like really comfortable. So we'll try to do what we can to just kind of help people to, to be comfortable coming there. And we find that it works best if they come on certain days. So we'll have some people that maybe they always come on Mondays and Wednesdays, and so that way they get to know the people there on Mondays and Wednesdays, and they form their own group. And we've also seen that, it's really cool that oftentimes some of our, clients that, are, really try to help some of the ones that have like more severe dementia and include them on things, and it makes them feel really good too. So it's a wonderful experience. Anyone have any questions at all about the Adult Day Center? So mainly it is private pay, although yes, IRIS and some other, sometimes there's other foundational grants that are available, but it's $100 for a lower needs client, and then $131 per day for a higher needs client. And it's all dependent on the assessment when they come in, depending on how much one-on-one care that they may need. One of the other things I also want to let you know too is that we do have the ability to give medications as well. So that's something, and also provide cares. Go ahead, I saw there was another question back there too. Yeah, and that's a nice thing too is that when we're there, we do offer some other additional services. So if someone does need assistance with toileting, if there would be something where something would come up and they might need to change their clothes, our staff can help with things like that. And then for additional fees, we also can do things like give a shower. That would be for $50. And when it is available, we also can do things like haircuts and foot care. We're not offering that currently because we don't have providers, but we have in the past. Yes, so like I believe it's like if you need assistance with 2 or more cares, then that would put you at like a higher need. So like things like assistance with maybe, toileting and also maybe assistance with walking. And then we're also going to go on then to talking about hospice. So this is the other service that we offer, and this is, of course, the service that we started, over 40 years ago. So what is hospice care? A lot of times people talk about the word hospice, but, people are like, I'm not sure what this means, or maybe, they haven't always gotten a clear answer. So this is really a blend of medical, emotional, and spiritual care. And what I really think about with hospice is we really look at the full person. So it's more than just somebody's diagnosis or the illness that they have. We're really looking at all aspects of them that we want to be able to support. So like we said, mental, physical, and spiritual care. And a lot of people say, well, how would I know if hospice is for me, or how would I qualify for hospice? And so we say 2 physicians would have to say, with the progression of somebody's terminal illness, that they wouldn't be surprised, if that patient died within 6 months. And they also have to have a goal of comfort and not cure. So what that means is, they really want to no longer cure their terminal illness. They just really want to have comfort and have symptom management and quality, and focus on quality of life. A lot of people say, well, what would happen then? What if I'm on hospice for 6 months and all of a sudden it gets to 6 months and, and I'm still here? Does that mean I can't be on? And again, with that criteria, it means that as long as 2 physicians would say that they wouldn't be surprised, if that patient died within 6 months, that can continue to go on. And that's why you may see that you may know people in the community or have family members or friends that were on hospice for much longer than 6 months, just because they continued to meet that criteria. But with hospice's support and with that focus on quality life, they actually lived much longer. And I think the other thing that we've seen too with the research, is that actually people that are on hospice actually live much longer with the service. And that's just because the focus really is on symptom management and quality of life. And because of that, people live longer. So I think one of the things with hospice that people are surprised about is that, care comes to you, wherever you live. So it comes right to the home. We've talked a lot from the people in the audience that, they had an experience where their loved one went to Agrace in Fitchburg. And while we do have a very small percentage of our patients that do, again, 95% of the patients that we see every day, they never go anywhere. They just are cared for in the comfort of their home, and Agrace just comes to them. And that's really, where it can be like just a private residence. It can be an apartment, it could be a condo, it could be a nursing home or assisted living. So I know we've got like some different assisted livings, right down the street. We would come right to there. Really any place, skilled nursing. We've even had people that are technically considered homeless, and we have come to them because they're living in a hotel room. So we will come anywhere someone calls home. For those of you that maybe couldn't hear, she wanted to let everyone know that there is Solace House, and this is a new community that recently opened that does provide for people that are homeless, and Agrace also does come as well and, and provide care at Solace Home as well. So thank you so much. That's for the reminder about that. So some of the things that people say, like, how would I know if, if hospice would be someone that I should call to see if I qualified for services for a loved one or, even for myself. So these are just some of the signs and symptoms to be looking for. It might be things like unexplained weight loss. It may be trouble breathing. It may be that someone has had COPD for years, but maybe it's becoming more and more difficult to breathe. It may also be that you've noticed, a loved one is just starting to have more frequent ER visits or even hospitalizations due to their chronic conditions. They may be falling more frequently. They may have trouble swallowing, or you're noticing that they're just not eating as much as they used to. They may be more weak. They're just really fatigued. They just have a lack of energy. They could be sleeping a lot more than they used to. They may also have pain that's becoming now hard to manage. And then also too, they may notice that there might be, multiple skin sores that aren't, healing, or they're suddenly having wounds that aren't healing. And then those activities of daily living, being able to get up and get dressed and bathed and toileted and feeding yourself, they may also need more assistance with those daily activities of daily living. So those would all be reasons, to call Agrace. And one of the things that, is anybody can make a referral for palliative care or hospice. I know sometimes people think, oh, well, I need my doctor to do that. Anyone can make a referral for palliative care or hospice. So we actually get probably the majority of our referrals for hospice from just family members or friends that are noticing that there's been some changes with their loved one, and they just want to see, if they can get some extra support. So the reason why that's important is because I think a lot of people think that with hospice, they're like, oh, I thought that was really only for somebody who maybe had days or even hours left. But because we talked about how you wouldn't be surprised if somebody, died within 6 months, there's actually a lot of time that hospice can be involved and really be able to help someone to be able to continue to stay at home and live there with a really good quality of life. So what are all the things that, hospice, provides? So some of the things are, to be able to keep somebody, safe and be able to still be independent at home is you're going to get visits, from an entire Agrace Hospice team, and they're going to help manage the patient's pain, what symptoms they're having, and especially when somebody is end of life, sometimes that becomes much more difficult to manage. So we're really the experts in that care for pain and symptom management. Also, too, we talked about how important, grief and spiritual support is, and not only after somebody has died, but also even beforehand. It can be so good to be able to get that extra support ahead of time, and not just for our patients, but also for their family members as well. Also, too, it's education about what to expect. It can be very, frightening when somebody is end of life. So it's really helpful to be able to get that education about what to expect so there's no surprises. And so that way, we know that we're caring for our loved one to the best of our ability and making sure that they're comfortable. Also, too, for a lot of our patients, the majority of which are in the home, there's also education on caregiver support. How do you care for that person at home? How do we make sure that they stay comfortable? And then also, too, there's all these things that hospice can provide so that way the family doesn't have to pay for them themselves. So any medications associated with their primary hospice diagnosis are covered by hospice. Also, durable medical equipment, so things like a hospital bed, which can be so important to be able to have at home so that somebody's comfortable, and that way they can sit up in bed and eat in bed and be comfortable, and more easy to transfer them and change them. All that can be supplied by hospice. Things like wheelchairs or walkers, or even if there was a lift that was available or a shower chair, all these things can be provided free of charge, from hospice. And we're very lucky that with Agrace, we have our own DME company. You may see sometimes when you're driving around, there's a white truck that says like green with Agrace on the side of it. That's our DME trucks. So they're going around all week long delivering things like equipment to the home. If somebody needs a hospital bed, they're gonna get out there immediately and deliver that so that our patients are comfortable. Also, things like supplies, incontinence supplies are all covered by hospice as well for our patients, and things like wound care supplies as well. So all those things would be included. as well as also if somebody would ever need it, sometimes there are things that happen where there's acute symptoms that our patients have or pain emergencies, and instead of going to the hospital like Meriter or St. Mary's or UW, if you're on Agrace, if there's an available bed, you may also be able to come over to the Agrace inpatient unit, which is like a small hospital, but it's very beautiful and very peaceful, and it's just for hospice patients. And there's an option to be able to come there to a peaceful place versus having to go to one of the regular hospitals. And then, of course, as a hospice patient, we also have respite care. So our patients do have up to 5 nights that they can also, come to either to another community that provides respite or to Agrace to be able to give that caregiver at home a break as well. And that's all covered under the Medicare hospice benefit. What questions do you guys have so far on hospice and what I've said? So the way that hospice is covered is in the United States, we have what we call the Medicare hospice benefit. And so anyone, as soon as they turn age 65, automatically qualifies for this. You don't have to do anything, but then you would qualify for the Medicare hospice benefit, and that covers your hospice care. And then if somebody isn't age 65 yet, we also have Medicaid that covers hospice, private insurance that covers hospice, and then with Agrace, because we are a nonprofit community-based organization, we also have what we call our Care for All Fund. And that's something that our foundation funds to provide hospice and palliative care for people in the community that don't qualify for other types of coverage or reimbursement. And that's just something that we do as a community-based nonprofit organization because we don't want anyone in the community not to be able to have hospice care, and that's something we do. We also then have an entire circle of care. So these are all the people that would be coming out to, support someone in the home on hospice. So we've got a registered nurse who would be in charge of our patient's plan of care. They would probably start out initially doing weekly visits. We will also increase our visit frequency as someone continues to decline. We also have our social workers that are there to connect with resources with the families and the community, and also to provide that emotional support. We have certified nursing assistants that come in and they do things like give our patients a shower or a bed bath. They can help with companionship visits too, but they're really to help with some of those activities of daily living. And then also too, you actually will keep your same primary care physician. We don't replace the primary care physician because we know that relationship is very important to our patients. But we do also have hospice doctors and nurse practitioners that are also available just in case there would be an order, say, needed late at night or on the weekend that we needed to be able to get filled as soon as possible for our patients' comfort. We have spiritual and grief counselors, and those would be people that can, meet not only with our patients, but also with our families, provide that support as someone is end of life, and then we'll also follow them for a year after their loved one dies. We have interpreter services, and then of course we have wonderful Agrace volunteers. They do everything from coming and doing companionship visits in the home with our patients, to also being vigil volunteers. So if, say, as someone is nearing end of life, they want somebody who is able to be bedside with a patient if a family member is not available or needs a break. We also have vigil volunteers that can sit bedside and hold their hand and be a source of comfort. And then, of course, we talked about the primary care physician, and of course the circle of care would include, of course, family, friends. And then if the patient is at, say, community, assisted living, memory care, skilled nursing, independent living, we will also collaborate as well with those staff members so that way that person is cared for. So I know we kind of reviewed this already because of the great question that we got, but again, hospice is going to be covered by the Medicare hospice benefit or also by Medicaid. Private insurance, or again, our Agrace Care for All if somebody didn't have access to any other type of insurance. So there's very little out-of-pocket costs, no large medical bills to pay. And the thing that's most important that we really reinforce with friends and family and patients is this is a benefit that everyone is entitled to. It's something that, our, country feels is important to be able to support people at end of life. And, so many people we hear from say, if they had known the type of support that they would be getting from hospice, they wish that they would have called us earlier, just because of all the different things that are included in the benefit and the quality of life that our patients, get. Because really what's most important to us is each person is their own individual. What's important to one person may be very different than what's important to another person. And so we're just guided by people's goals. Whatever our patients' goals are, we meet them where they are. We try to do our best to be able to meet those goals and the things that are most important to them at end of life and be able to provide that service to them, because everybody has their own unique end-of-life journey. Each one is different, and what each person feels like would be the best journey for them is different. So all we can do is really be guided by that and support them to the best of our ability. And that's really what hospice care does. We also then, we talked a little bit about this before too, so we do have the general inpatient care. So this is our hospital level of care. So if somebody, say, was having a pain emergency or they were having acute symptom management issues and it couldn't be controlled at home for someone's comfort, they would have the option of coming to the Agrace inpatient unit. And the inpatient, just like a hospital stay, would be covered by Medicare. Now, we also have residential care. So sometimes people say, oh, I know somebody, and they came and they came to live at Agrace. So this is probably what they were talking about, is we do have our residents, because we do have some patients that just want to come live at Agrace, and that would be in the residence. They have private rooms. It would be, where their hospice services would continue to be paid for by Medicare, but just like how, you'd be living in either your private residence or, say, an assisted living or memory care or skilled nursing, your room and board, though, would be privately paid. So that would be a private pay fee to come actually live just like you would be living, like at, say, an assisted living, but it would be living over at the Agrace residence. But they're beautiful rooms. Each room has like a private outdoor space. We have our gorgeous gardens. So also too, we welcome anyone who ever wants to come for a tour at Agrace. You're welcome to come, and we'll give you a tour so you can see what it looks like. Here's just some other pictures of what the Fitchburg campus, which is right over on East Shore Parkway, a few minutes away, looks like. And then otherwise, we'll move into grief support. So we do have our Agrace Grief Support Center. It's also located in Fitchburg. It is just like a few miles away from where the Agrace inpatient unit and residence is. And this was opened in 2017. Is just a grief center for anyone in the community. So the big thing to know about this is anyone can participate and go to counseling sessions and grief groups at the Agrace Grief Center. You do not have to have a loved one that is on any Agrace service to be able to come. So we welcome people here. We have different programs, different rooms. We have everything from one-on-one counseling with a grief counselor to also specific grief support groups for people that are for spouse loss or for general, family member loss or friends. All of this is available to the community, as well as also we have grief groups that are also for adults and children, so then that way children can come as well. And those are groups that just run during the school year. So these are just a little bit more about the grief education that we have. We have also we have grief education for out in the community, everything for businesses, for small group grief support, and then also for schools. We also have different groups that are available to be able to support, kids in the community, and also too, if there, say, was ever sometimes like an event that maybe kids need some extra support, we can have our grief counselors come out too. Then we've got our Grace volunteers. Also too, If anyone is ever looking for a volunteer opportunity, we welcome you. We wouldn't be able to do all the wonderful things that we do without a Grace volunteers. And we will, there's so many different roles that somebody can do, everything from working one-on-one with our patients to also working in different capacities over at the Agrace campus in Fitchburg. So please reach out if anyone is interested. As well as also, we wouldn't be able to do the things that we do as well without our Grace Foundation as a nonprofit that allows us to be able to fund our Care for All group, also allows us to be able to do some of our special things like the Grief Support Center, just because we don't actually get any funding at all from the government for that. That's all something that we do as a nonprofit. And then finally, many of you may be very familiar with our Grace thrift stores. We have 3 Madison locations, 1 in Janesville. All the proceeds support our Grace services, and so we're always looking for donations. A lot of people don't realize too that we will help people pack up. Say if somebody is moving and they want to get rid of things, we will help pack those things up and get them over to the one of the thrift stores. So that can be a really nice thing to kind of help if somebody's looking to kind of clean out a house. So Janice was asking, where is the thrift store located in Madison? So we have one that's over kind of by East Town Mall, over there in one of the outer parking lots there. We have another one that's on the west side on Junction Road. It's kind of across from Target and like next to Steve's Liquor. That one sounds like that's the popular one that gets a lot of really good stuff. And then we also have a furniture store now on Stoughton Road, which I've heard is fabulous too. They also said it's really good to sometimes check online for social media, because they'll sometimes put like what new furniture and such has just been delivered, so people have a good idea if they should be going over there. It must be something different, but the one on Junction Road is just the Agrace thrift store. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we really appreciate everyone's support with those. It really allows us to be able to do our mission when people are donating things and then also buying things there too. Well, thank you all so much. I really appreciate all the questions and all the engagement. I have a number of resources over here on the table by Janice, and I will be here as well. So if anyone has any additional questions, I'm happy to talk to you. Thank you so much for your attention today. We appreciate it.
So now we all know what hospice means and palliative care and what Agrace does. And I think she deserves another round of applause. Thank you so much, Molly. We appreciate you. Thank you.